Senzo Meyiwa Murder Trial is expected to continue this morning at the High Court in Pretoria. Yesterday, advocate Zandile Mshololo, counsel for fifth accused Fisokuhle Ntuli, brought an application for alleged irregularities due to the state furnishing the defense with a copy of the second docket. Our reporter Chriselda Lewis is standing by with the latest. Chriselda, thank you so much for your time this morning. Please just give us a recap of yesterday.
Well, good morning to you, Mkolisi. Indeed, that special entry application will continue to be heard here at the High Court in Pretoria. This is not like a call for a postponement or anything of that nature. What it essentially is that advocate Zandile Mshololo, who represents accused number 5, Fisokuhle Ntuli, is basically questioning the procedural fairness in that she says that not all the documentation, which are crucial in this case, was handed over to the defense in time. You'd remember the controversial second docket 375, which has consistently come up in this matter, which is believed to implicate as suspects those that were in the house at the time that Senzo Meyiwa was killed, including his then-girlfriend Kelly Kumalo, his sister Longwe Twala, and others as well. Essentially, this docket 375, according to advocate Zandile Mshololo, she says she only received it and got to know about the contents of it during the cross-examination of the state's first witness, Thabo Mosia, and that this docket has crucial information inside it. She went on to mention some of what is contained in this docket. She says, for example, you have a photo album of the crime scene, which is contained in the second docket, and also a second statement that forensic detective Thabo Mosia had deposed, in which it seems he has contradicted himself, also mentioning Brigadier Ndlovu. You would recall that is also a name that had been quite prominent at the start of this trial, who's believed to have been the police officer who called forensic detective Thabo Mosia to the scene and had showed him where to take photographs of the crime scene. So those are some of the things that advocate Zandile Mshololo says is contained in this docket 375. She says that her client has been prejudiced and has not basically been given the right to a fair trial, in that this docket 375 was not disclosed to them prior to the trial beginning. So this essentially, Mkolisi, means that she's asking this court to consider this particular aspect in whatever decision it may find at a later stage against her client and the others in this particular matter, in the sense that it does open up grounds for an appeal if this court does not find in favor of her client. Essentially what this means is that what she's doing is she's opening up the door for a possible appeal in the event that this court does find her client guilty. She also says that Fisokuhle Ntuli would have pleaded another way if they had access to this controversial docket 375. So that is part of what she advanced yesterday in her argument. But the state prosecutor, advocate George Baloy, basically saying that given the fact that all the accused in this matter were before this court had pleaded in April, he says that it is not true that the defense did not know about this docket. He argues that as far as March, there had already been statements made inside court about the existence of this docket 375. We're expecting advocate George Baloy to conclude his argument. After that, the instructing attorney for accused number 1 to 4, who is now representing those accused after the advocate Malisela Tifo had basically left this particular case. We're expecting him most likely in this aspect to support part of the argument that was made by advocate Zandile Mshololo, and after that you'll have advocate Zandile Mshololo responding to that. But most crucially, what this essentially means is that this special application entry, this advocate Zandile Mshololo, who represents accused number 5, is basically wanting this court to note that her client, his rights had basically been violated, that he was not given the prospect of a free trial on the basis that the state, according to her, had not disclosed all the documents prior to this trial starting, and basically opening up grounds for, at a later stage, the possibility of an appeal if this court does not find in favor of her client.
Now, this is really baffling, the issue of this docket 375, Chriselda. What do we also know as far as how far are the authorities there in terms of looking at this particular docket? Because we heard that it may only be prosecuted or looked at after this particular trial. What do we know as far as that is concerned? But also, what is also interesting about this, Chriselda, is that when Advocate Mshololo was speaking on her client's behalf yesterday, she said that the dent that has happened cannot be rectified. It's irreparable. My client does not know how to conduct himself going forward. What does this mean for Advocate Mshololo's client, Chriselda?
Mkolisi, all that Advocate Zandile Mshololo needs to do is to plant that seed of doubt in this court, that the state did not conduct itself in accordance with the law. You heard her several times yesterday saying that this was against the law, and that procedurally the state did not conduct itself in the manner in which it should, on the basis that it did not disclose this controversial docket 375 on time, and that she only heard about it, according to her, was at the time that the forensic detective, Sergeant Thabo Masia, was being cross-examined, and this was way after her client had pleaded. So essentially at this point is to make this court aware. This special entry application is to say, let the court listen to what I have to say. There is a possibility here that the state did not conduct itself in a procedurally fair manner, and that her client was not basically being given the right to a free trial, to a fair trial, I beg your pardon, on the basis that not all the documentation had been provided to the defense prior to this trial starting. So to plant that seed of doubt that procedurally the state did not follow, according to her, the procedures that it was supposed to follow much prior to this trial starting by declaring this documentation. So in this instance, indeed, you're correct. She did say that what the state has done has put a dent in this case. It is irreparable. We also saw Judge Chifuwa Maumela asking whether the client can plead again. She basically said no in this instance. So what we're essentially getting from this particular matter is that what Advocate Zandile Mshololo wants to do is to also prepare for at a later stage, in the event that this court does not find again in her client's favor, there would be grounds for an appeal in this particular matter. But this wouldn't only be, Mkolisi, for accused number 5. This would also cast aspersions, and which is without a doubt going to come up as well today with the instructing attorney for accused number 1 to 4, in that he's also likely to raise some of those concerns. With regard to the docket 375, it has been a serious bone of contention in this particular case. At first, we heard inside this court that it was not an issue that we needed to concern ourselves about, because what we initially heard from the Director of Public Prosecutions, the South Gauteng Division, was that no decision had been made pertaining to this particular docket. Then on the 22nd of August, which is a couple of weeks back, we're hearing from the DPP that this docket has now been transferred from the Johannesburg region, and now it's been transferred to Pretoria. And initially what we heard was that a decision was only going to be taken on its merits and what is contained in there only after this particular trial has been concluded. And I know that is going to be a bone of contention, and what will certainly be raised by the instructing attorney representing accused number 1 to 4, in that they seem to be unhappy with the fact that no decision has been made now, and that the Director of Public Prosecutions of the NPA believes that a decision on this matter should only be taken after, because they had heavily been relying on this docket 375. They're hoping that those that are implicated or believed to be be implicated in that particular docket, which are those that are indicated who were inside the house at the time that Senzo Meyiwa was called. They still contend, they believe those are the individuals who should be inside this court answering to the killing of Senzo Meyiwa, and not the 5 men inside this dock. So it'll be very interesting to see how the matter unfolds today. We're not sure at this stage whether the presiding judge will rule on this matter today, but what we're also expecting is a bit earlier on in court proceedings yesterday when we got underway, we heard that Sergeant Thabo Masia, who is the state's first witness, that cross-examination will finally get underway today, but it's quite likely that perhaps we might have a ruling from the judge on this special entry application that has been brought by Advocate Zandile Mshololo, but we'll certainly have to see how matters unfold this morning.